Well, meantime, today we are learning President Biden and President Xi Jinping of China will meet Monday on the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Indonesia. It's their first in-person meeting since President Biden took office. His advisors say he'll be focused on setting expectations. But the Russian embassy saying President Vladimir Putin will not attend next week's summit. He'll be represented by his foreign minister. So let's bring in former U.S. State Department official David Tafuri. David, thank you so much for being here. You know, we talked a lot about Xi Jinping last hour. This hour, we want to focus on Putin not attending in person. Do you think he ever really considered showing up there?
It's not clear. Apparently, he may attend by video. You know, he was kicked out of the G8 in 2014 after Russia annexed the Crimea. And there were many in the G20, particularly Western countries, including the U.S., who thought he should have been kicked out of the G20. Indonesia, who is hosting the G20, and the Indonesian president said they're not going to uninvite countries that had been invited already. So he's technically invited. I'm sure in some ways he'd like to be there, but any international travel for him is quite difficult. He's apparently very paranoid. He really hasn't traveled much since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So I'm not at all surprised that he is not attending in person.
Well, so many nations, particularly Western nations, focused on Putin and his next move, what he's done so far. But have these Western nations just simply moved past any possibility of a diplomatic solution to the war at this point? Will anyone ever negotiate with Russia's president?
Well, the problem is that any such negotiation is really up to Putin and to the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. And with Ukraine making significant progress on the ground, on the battlefield, it just took back a part of Kherson, which was one of the provinces that just 5 weeks ago Russia announced that it was annexing. Given this progress and momentum, President Zelensky doesn't have any reason to enter into peace negotiations with Russia unless those peace negotiations involve a complete withdrawal by Russia from Ukraine. And we know that Putin is not ready to agree to that, and it's very unlikely he would agree to that anytime soon. So part of the reason that there isn't a mediation, an active mediation going on here towards a compromise and a peaceful solution is that the two sides are just too far apart.
They are, and David, here we are, we're talking about Xi Jinping, we're talking about Vladimir Putin, talking about, Biden meeting with Xi, but, there is this actual summit that is happening. Right now the world is dealing with high inflation, dealing with supply chain issues. What kind of solutions could we see come out of this summit?
Well, that'll be part of the discussion as well. I mean, one of the things on Monday when President Biden meets with the president of China will be to talk about harmful economic practices by China. One of the other things that we know for sure that President Biden would like to accomplish more globally is an increase in the supply of oil and the supply of gas, so we could get the global prices under control. That would obviously also help with getting inflation under control. It's notable that countries around the world are suffering from inflation. It's not just the U.S. In fact, inflation is even worse in Europe. So that'll be one of the things that President Biden will be speaking to the other G20 leaders about.
Yeah, and we certainly would like to see some solutions come out of this. Okay, David, thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.